Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their life for freedom. I'm going to teach you how to upgrade your health, money, and mindset so you can have more energy, time freedom, and financial independence. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. Okay, we are in the home stretch. We've got just a week and a half before we head off to the Dominican Republic for 13 weeks. So we're kind of excited, but there's a lot going on right now. It's an exciting time. Obviously, we're trying to figure out how to pack because we are going to try to do 4 of us in 2 suitcases for 13 weeks. Wish us luck. I think we did it last time, but we also had 2 carry-ons. So we'll see how that goes. But by the time you listen to this episode, we will have probably already been into the Dominican for a little while. So definitely make sure you're following me over on Instagram at Tanessa Shears if you want to keep up with the day-to-day on kind of where we are in the world and what we're learning and the travel and all of that. But today's episode was inspired because I had a coaching call and it literally just ended 20 minutes ago. And it was a group coaching call in my Becoming Limitless health consulting program for entrepreneurs. And sometimes when I get into these coaching modes, things just flow out of me and I get these concepts and ideas that pop up. And so what I decided to do was jump on and record a podcast episode because one of the ideas that I had in this was just like, okay, I think more people need to hear about this idea because it's also something I want to implement. So what are we talking about? We are talking about breaking that dang procrastination loop. And we know what we're talking about here. It's like you have all this stuff to get done, or you say you want to do something, or you want to eat better, or you want to do something in your business, or you want to start exercising, or whatever it is, but you keep putting it off, right? You do something more fun, or you do something that's not as hard, or you do something that's maybe you clean your desk. Like that was one when I had a regular desk. That happened to me all the time. And so this episode is a concept that I came up with that is an experiment to help you break that procrastination loop. And it is called the Standards Bootcamp. And I'm going to be talking to you definitely all about that. But another really good episode that I think you should listen to and complement with this, I only did a couple of months ago, is episode 141. It was called The Experimenter's Mindset. And it was how I look at everything as an experiment, whether it's business or health or money. It's always an experiment that I do for a predetermined amount of time before I decide if it works or not. And so the reason I think that that's such a good episode to listen to after this one is because it'll explain why I call it a Standards Bootcamp, and it's a week because it's all about experimenting and discovering who you are and how you think and how you best get results, but only committing for a week at a time. Because so much of the time I've had clients they like the idea of committing to all of this forever and ever is very overwhelming. And you know what? I agree sometimes. And so why not just commit for a week and see how you feel? And if you love it, you keep it. If you don't, you toss it. And that's the whole idea behind that episode. Definitely go listen to it. It might shift your entire perspective on health. And I love that. But we're talking today about procrastination and getting out of those cycles of avoidance or switching tasks and losing focus, especially when it comes to those things you really want to get done, whether it's client work or whether it's your workout or anything to do with your health, right? Because I think we've all been guilty of that. I mean, how many times have we laid in bed scrolling on our phones and are like, yes, I am going to go to bed right now. I am going to go to bed right now. After this reel, after this story, after this, and all of a sudden it's like an hour gone by and you've doom scrolled and you've learned nothing, gained nothing, but you've lost an hour of sleep, right? That's that type of procrastination. And so the Standards Bootcamp is going to be what I'm going to propose as an option for a solution for you to try if you feel stuck in this, right? It's a powerful 1-week process that I came up with and is designed to break this cycle and help you build lasting self-integrity, right? But we really have to understand why we are procrastinating in the first place, right? Is it because we're feeling overwhelmed? Is it because we don't actually know what we should be working on? Really identifying that, I think, is the big deal. So let's ask yourself this, what are you procrastinating on right now? Picture that in your mind. Okay, got it? Now, why are you procrastinating on that? And here's a caveat. If you've ever worked with me, you'll know this. I don't know is not allowed as an answer because I think that is such a self-limiting way to think is when you allow yourself to say, I don't know. So a standard that I have set for myself is I never say I don't know. I ask myself this question. Well, if I did know, what would the answer to that question be? Okay, so I want you to ask yourself, why are you procrastinating? Is it you don't know what you do? Are you overwhelmed? Do you have too much on your plate? Like, really, let's get into this, right? And then what are you procrastinating with, right? Are you doing fun stuff? Or are you doing maybe things that feel like quick dopamine hits? Like, yes, at least I get to check something off my list, even though you never move your big projects forward, right? What this really comes down to is a lack of clear decision making, right? Like your ability to make decisions and uphold them, that relationship you have with yourself has weakened, right? So when you say you're going to do something at a specific time, you don't follow through. And I'll say as a caveat to that, if you don't allow yourself to set an intention to follow through on, it's really hard to even do this process in the first place. So what this means is we are going to be getting good at making decisions on what we want to do. And then part 2, making good decisions at following through instead of just winging it, right? We don't just want to show up and be like, well, I should work out today. Well, what am I going to eat today? Because we all know that staring into the fridge is not a successful way to eat well, because you'll always eat what you feel like eating if you don't actually think about it ahead of time, right? Because I think honestly, everything that we are exposed to is about short-term gratification, right? I mean, whether it's social media or it's TV or it's food or whatever it is, it's all about that short-term relief, but it really just makes us feel overwhelmed and stuck because we're not moving forward the things that make us feel successful or the things that allow us to tell ourselves like, yeah, I'm doing a good job at this, right? Because the procrastination feels good in the moment, but it's never what feels good long-term. So let's talk about this. The Standards Bootcamp. What is it? Super simple. It is a 1-week challenge that you have with yourself where you uphold every single decision you make ahead of time. Ooh, that means if you plan to sit down and work in your business from 9 to 11 a.m. without interruptions, you do that. If you plan to eat no sugar, no flour, or only have an off-plan meal on Saturday, you do that. If you plan on going to bed at 10 p.m. and turning off your phone, do that. Do you get the point? Like if you want to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you do that. And for a lot of us, like we really lose, like I was saying, that relationship between you and yourself. And I think of this as an exercise in rebuilding self-integrity, where the decisions you make this week are non-negotiable. You do not allow yourself to give in to your excuses that will come up. And notice I said will come up, right? Because you are a natural human with a human brain that wants to stay comfortable, not do hard things, and keep everything status quo. So as soon as you go to change something, your brain's going to freak out. And this is one thing I do like to say to clients all the time. It's like, you are not a special snowflake because you are finding this hard, right? It's not anything wrong with you. It's the fact that this muscle, this self-integrity muscle is weak, right? Whenever you say you're going to do something, your brain's like, yeah, okay, we never do this anyways, so we're not really expecting for this to work. Like we know that conversation in our head, right? Like if you said to yourself, we're going to do 4 workouts this week, what does your brain say? Because if you have self-integrity in this area and you rely on yourself and you keep your word, your brain's like, yeah, we'll do 4 workouts. But if your brain at all goes, I don't think I can do that, even though I have the time for it, I just don't think I'll follow through on it. Maybe it's a self-integrity issue, right? And we're going to work on this. And we're working on making non-negotiable decisions this week, right? And the goal of this boot camp, the outcome, is that by the end of the week, you have begun the process of rebuilding that relationship with yourself, that when you say you will do something, you do it, right? And you increase the focus on building this skill through consistent, intentional decision making. All right? This is not going to cure procrastination forever. However, here's the question that I asked my client when we were having this conversation. If you got through 1 whole week and you did everything you said you were going to do, how would you feel? And she's like, that would be amazing because I have not had a week like that in forever, right? And so I was like, this is amazing. This will give you evidence for the belief that you can be the type of person that has your own back. And it's a small burst where we know that we can stay focused. We have one goal. The goal is to really take procrastination head on and show yourself that you are the type of person who can do what they say they want to do. Now, like I said, this may not mean you're transformed for the rest of your life, but it's the jumping off point, because when you get to the end of that week and you're like, holy hell, I did that, you get to decide, okay, let's do this another week. I like this, let's go. Or you get to decide like, yeah, no, I liked procrastinating better. Like genuinely, you get to make that decision. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to go over a couple of the other frameworks that I offered this client to kind of just help frame this whole challenge. We were kind of riffing on the go and it was really fun. I think one of the most important things is some type of check-in process with yourself. Now, our brain's natural inclination is going to want to be to complicate everything and be like, okay, we should probably do an hour-long planning session on Sunday to plan all our priorities for the week, and we should have this detailed calendar, and I have to figure out my calendar app, and could I put it on my fridge, and how am I going to check it? I should make a Google spreadsheet. Like our brain loves to do that, to make it really complicated. But here's what I suggested to this client. I said, hey, why don't you just make a 5-minute process that you do as the first thing that happens when you wake up in the morning. That can literally look like you wake up, there is a notebook on the side of your bedside table, you open it, and what you do is you look at the things that you set as non-negotiable standards, the things you were going to do the day before, and you review and you're like, did I do it or did I not do it? You give it check, check, check. Then you spend the next 2 minutes writing down the non-negotiable standards you have for the day ahead. That's as complicated as you need to make it, for real. If you don't want to do it first thing in the morning, this works equally as well the moment you sit your butt in bed at night. All right, your phone is down, you do this, and then you go to sleep, right? You're reflecting on the previous day, pretty much, did I meet my standards? And if for any reason there was a standard that was not met, you have to go in and dig on that. Why did that happen like that? What could I have done differently? What did I learn from that? Because Alex Hormozy says the definition of learning is you encounter the same set of circumstances or the same environment, and if you make the same decision again, you did not learn. If you make a new decision, you learn. So you need to know what the decision you need to make differently is if you weren't meeting your standards, right? You need to be constantly evaluating that. And I honestly think you could do that in something as simple as 5 minutes a day. And my challenge, even though you want to do something more elaborate, maybe it's journaling or whatever, don't overcomplicate it for the first week. If you reach the end of the first week and you loved it, overcomplicate it then, because at least you'll have had your feet wet with the discomfort that it comes with setting intentions for yourself and following them, right? You also want to, if you're doing it in the morning, pre-decide your standards for the day and set clear intentions. Like, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to get to inbox 0 and it's going to take me 90 minutes. Or I am going to write 5 pieces of content for my social media. Or I am going to do 4 hours of client work. Or I am going to go to the gym today and eat a whole food lunch, breakfast, and dinner. Do you see what I'm saying? They are very clear things. Don't be wishy-washy. Be so clear that you could look at your intentions for the day and easily say, yes, I did it, or no, I didn't. Don't make it like, I'm going to be more active today. No, that's not good. I want you to think, how many steps do you want to hit today? How many times do you want to get up from your desk? How much exercise do you want to do? How many minutes of high intensity exercise? You know what I mean? I really want you to start thinking in that way instead of something that's a lot more quantifiable. So you've reflected on your previous day, you've decided today, and I really want you to then in that moment decide that you are keeping your standards for that day. And a rule of thumb, keep them simple and keep them achievable. This also does not have to be this big elaborate thing where you plan 1 week at a time, all your decisions. Like I know sometimes we really like this idea of like, I'm going to look out at the week and I know that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I want to work out and then I'm going to do yoga on Tuesday and all of this kind of stuff. But I want to encourage you that if that is within your capability and your personality type, go for it. However, let it be flexible. There is no rules against just deciding the morning of or the night before what you want to do the next day. Because remember, the goal of this is not perfection, right? It's to make decisions that you honor. So I would much rather make a decision in the morning that I'm going to work out at noon today and honor that, then on Sunday to be like, yeah, Wednesday I'm going to work out, and then have that not work out. Because being able to plan your non-negotiable standards a week at a time is a skill set. It really is. It's something that you develop by having awareness of how long your tasks take, how often you need to do them, how much you can fit in a day, what your energy capacity is. Those are skills that you learn through practice. So if you are in the state now where you are just procrastinating on everything, you miss your workouts, you're never in bed on time, you're just kind of feeling like life is a little chaotic right now, this is where I want you to say, it's okay. I am going to start every day with committing. And then as those things come up, and naturally they're going to be uncomfortable, then I will deal with that. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm no longer focused on yesterday. I am worried about honoring my standards, my simple, achievable standards today. The focus is decisions ahead of time, not a week ahead of time, not 3 days ahead of time, not a month ahead of time, ahead of time, and honoring them and honoring them and honoring them. And honestly, if even the idea of a day is freaking you out, that's okay. No self-judgment here. I want you to work in 4-hour chunks. Chunk up your day. Okay, I am going to, let's say you wake up at 6 a.m. I am going to set my intentions from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. End. Now, I am going to set my intentions from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., chunk number 2, then 2 to 6, chunk number 3, then 6 to 10 p.m., chunk number 4. Do you see how you can honestly chunk it down as much as possible, even an hour? And I think this is this process that we need to be okay with it not being perfect the first time. And let's say you chunk it into 4-hour chunks, then maybe after your first full week of doing that, you then chunk it as days of non-negotiable standards with yourself. Then maybe you do it as 2 or 3 days at a time in the third week, and then maybe you do it as a week at a time. Not only are you building self-integrity with yourself, you have evidence that you can do it, and you build the skill of understanding what can fit in a day and time. It's just such a good exercise that I highly recommend. Now, let's get into the weeds of like you're in the day. You have your day planned, whether it was in the morning or whatever your structure is, and you're like, okay, I said I was going to do 2 hours of focused client work in the afternoon, but I don't really feel like it. I think I'm just going to watch a YouTube video and, and then clean my desk, and I'll get around to it after that. I want you to choose a question for yourself that is a clear yes or no question that will help you identify if you are doing one of your non-negotiable things or not. And that question can be up to you. I'm going to give you the question that the client and I came up with. It was, am I focusing on the next right thing? Because for me, if I made a list of non-negotiable things, and those are things I wanted to get done that day, and I find myself watching YouTube video despite the fact that I have something on that non-negotiable list I said I would get done, I can easily say, no, I'm not focusing on that right now. I can trade back to that, and then I can change course. So pick a question, something that is very clear. Am I on track or am I not on track? Am I moving through my non-negotiables or am I allowing procrastination in? Right? And it's kind of cool. The client that I was working with, she came up with this idea of like, well, maybe I should set multiple alarm clocks throughout the day that are like, hey, check in with your list. Hey, what are you doing? Stop right now. Am I focusing on the next right thing? And I loved that idea she gave. And you are welcome to come up with your own. Maybe it's send a message to yourself that, you get in the future. Like it's an email you get or a notification, or you have your admin or your VA or somebody send you a message or an email or something like that, right? A way of asking yourself in the moment and getting that external check-in multiple times a day, that can definitely help. Because like we said, the whole point of this is building that strength skill. Because most of the time when we're not following through on things, there's nothing wrong with us. It's just the self-integrity follow-through skill is weak. You just need to strengthen it. And the only way you can strengthen that is through repetition. And this Standards Bootcamp week will absolutely help you get in the repetitions that you want and help you strengthen the belief about yourself that I follow through. I follow through. I follow through. And then at the end of the day, you look back at your day, you're like, dang, I've got a day of evidence that I followed through. Look at me go. And then you get to the end of 2 days and 4 days and a week, and you're like, I follow through. And this is how you build momentum over time, right? The standards that you set for yourself will be very indicative of the life you can create for yourself, because the higher standards you are able to set, the more you will be able to go after if that is what you want, right? And on top of that, having standards allows you to focus on what really matters. If right now you are working a ton in your business, but you're neglecting your sleep, having a standard around your sleep gives you space to make sure that what you want to focus on, like what really matters, gets your time and attention, right? Every decision should honor and strengthen that I follow through belief. All right. So one other thing I'll just add on the end of this episode is I asked a question to this client, and I think it's a great question for you to ask yourself too. So before you start Standards Bootcamp, I want you to think about this. Think right now of the version of you who upholds all their standards. What does that look like? What kind of decisions do you make? How do you feel at the end of the day? What are your results like? Like, what are you like when you follow through on all of your decisions? Like, who do you have to become? What is different between that version of you and who you are now? Because if you can identify how you are different now than then, you will have an exact list of the key skill sets that you need to develop to become that person. And the cool thing is the Standards Bootcamp will let you do that, right? So an example, like you can pre-decide what you want to do ahead of time. Like if that version of you in the future just makes plans ahead of time for the stuff that matters and gets it on the calendar, cool. Standards Bootcamp gives you the wonderful opportunity to develop that. Or like knowing the difference between what's an important task and that's something that you need to do versus something that's just nice to do, right? Need to do versus nice to do. Like you will now, by having your Standards Bootcamp, be able to tell the difference between that, right? And you'll be able to stay on top of things. And it's all about building consistency. And sometimes we just need to put our foot down with ourselves and do a Standards Bootcamp if the softer approach has not been working for you. Now, I do highly recommend, like I said before, commit to the bootcamp for 1 full week without letting any decisions slide. And so this kind of leads into the last thing that I was speaking about when I was doing this group coaching call is, okay, you need to decide what level of decisions ahead of time you want to go in with. Now, I think of it as 3 levels that you can go in with. Level number 1 is your minimum standards, meaning like if I want to work out 5 times a week, then my minimum standard is 2. This does not mean I can't do 5 workouts or 4 workouts, but I guarantee I commit to doing 2 workouts this week. It is a non-negotiable standard that will happen no matter what. That is what we call a minimum standard. Then you can also find something that feels a little bit in the middle. Maybe you're like, hey, I want to do 3 workouts this week or 4 workouts this week, right? And then of course there's the maximum commitment level, which is 5. And I think this really just has to do with where you are starting, how strong this commitment muscle is, and how strong this self-integrity muscle is. Like if you are the type of person right now that you say you're going to do something and you have like a 90% belief that it never gets done and you have to start over again, I want you to start with the minimum standard, because guess what happens at the end of the week? You can change it or you can keep it the same, but I want you to have a successful week. So if you are the type of person that likes to jump in on a Monday fresh with all the new things, I do not think that I'm going to say this. I don't actually know how you are, but my guess is this hasn't been working for you in the past. So I wouldn't expect a maximum standard to be the best choice. Build the muscle. Put in the time to actually build the skill instead of always looking for the shortcut. So if you have no relationship with yourself when it comes to I do what I say I'm going to do and I follow through, you start with the minimum. So take what you actually want to do and cut it in half or less. Minimum or the median, you find something in between, and maximum is for those people that are like, I have a decent track record doing what I say I'm going to do, but I'm adding in some new stuff, but I have a certain level of discipline, go for it. Just know that the amount of things you are going to commit to in a week is going to change the discomfort you experience. So be ready for it. If you commit to maximum amount of things on your standards list for the week, get ready. You're going to be really uncomfortable. You're going to not want to do it almost every time for a lot of us. And that is normal. And even if you commit to minimum things, you're not going to feel like doing it. So you really just have to ask yourself is how uncomfortable do I want this week to be? And would it be nice to have a week that's called like a training week where I'm building this skill in an environment where I still can get some quick wins? Like I want you to win. So don't set targets for yourself that allow you not to win right off the bat, okay? Start small, set manageable standards. It won't overwhelm you. It's only a week. And if you want more, do more, but set the standard and you can always up it next week. The other key thing is, like I said, pre-deciding that task because it eliminates the guesswork and reduces that decision fatigue. And of course, if you want to build a layer of accountability in, grab a friend, grab a colleague, grab a fitness buddy, grab a partner, whoever it is, and build in a standards bootcamp together where you share the standards that you are committing to for the week with the partner. And you can check in with them, right? And you can be like, hey, how are you doing on yours? Or maybe you send each other a photo of you guys sweaty at the gym and you have a WhatsApp chat that's specifically just for the accountability of the Standards Bootcamp, and you shoot each other, here's me all sweaty on the treadmill, just finished my, Peloton hike, or, here's me at my desk doing this, like here's whatever it is. Here's me eating my Whole Foods meal. I'm taking photos, lunch, dinner, and breakfast, and sending them to the accountability page. That was the solution actually that I offered my client. And I always say, whether you take it or not is up to you. Just know that that is here, because I always feel like when we put our non-negotiable standards out in the world, we're more likely to follow them, because I just notice after working with a lot of clients, there's two types of people. There's the people that are just like, let's go, I can do this on my own. But most people will usually do more for other people than they'll do for themselves. So by saying you're going to show up at the gym with an accountability partner, or you're going to send a photo or something like that, it definitely allows a layer of accountability in there that might really feel good. So, are you ready to build lasting self-integrity with yourself? And it can just start here. This doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all solution, but what if this was exactly what you needed to break out of that procrastination loop? The Standards Bootcamp. It just sounds so fun, right? And as soon as I was saying it, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm pretty good with my decision-making right now, but you know what? I feel like I could strengthen that a little bit, because as I'm recording this, we're coming out of the holidays. Based on when this is airing, you might be at that point where you're like, I set goals a couple of weeks or months ago and they're kind of falling apart. Whenever you need a tune-up, you come back and do a Standards Bootcamp. Because I'm just a believer that as humans, we will have seasons in our lives where we are productive and focused, and then seasons of our life where other stuff comes up. And sometimes these non-negotiable standards, they become a little bit more negotiable. So what if you could just have this in your pocket as a tool that you use whenever you feel that you need a tune-up when it comes to, do I follow through that relationship with yourself? So like I said, I hope that's been really helpful. I would love, can you pop over on Instagram right now? At Tanessa Shears, come find me. I'll leave a link in the description. And can you tell me if you are doing a Standards Bootcamp this week? I would love that. And it doesn't matter how far into the future this episode is that you listen to it, or if you're listening to it when it goes live, drop over there on Instagram and tell me I'm doing a Standards Bootcamp, and I will cheer you on, because honestly, if we can develop this habit, there is a whole bunch of results and success awaiting for you in the future. And I can't wait to cheer you on. All right, you guys, have a beautiful week. I'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hey, before we go, did you know that I write a blog called The Freedom Diaries? It's basically documenting the story of how my husband and I reached financial independence at 33, and now we're traveling the world part-time with our 2 little girls. I write on travel and mindset and financial independence and money and all of that kind of stuff, and it's truly from the heart and just a completely joy and for fun project. If you want to check that out and subscribe or just read it for free, I'll leave a link to The Freedom Diaries in the description below.